Who wants to start?
Well, you've clearly answered that. You've clearly answered that yourself by starting.
All right. So, hello everyone. My name is Devin,
My name is Ethan.
and we have, for reasons that I cannot possibly fathom, decided to attempt to record a podcast. We don't have a name. We don't really have a purpose.
Yeah.
But we're gonna see how this goes, and
Yeah.
You're tall, but I'm standing in front of you.
It's a podcast.
The movie we watched this week, which was my choice, so maybe we'll institute a kind of like a rotation of choices, or if anyone ever listens to this for some reason, we can ask what people want us to watch. But was the 1987 film Predator,
The year of my birth.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And
I watch it every year on my birthday to commemorate 1987.
So yeah, take us into Predator, Ethan.
Yeah, so I mean, spoiler alert. We're going to be revealing details of the movie Predator from 1987. If you wish to experience this film for the first time, fresh, then skip ahead to the 89-minute mark of this podcast, and you can avoid all the spoilers.
Where we will be revealing who did 9/11 at the 89th minute. So
I mean, let's kick off. The film begins. I guess the prelude at the very first scene of the film is it does the thing that every sci-fi film from the 70s and 80s does. It starts with like stars, and then it like pans down, and there's an alien ship. It's perhaps unique in that it continues to pan down, and then you're like, oh shit, that's Earth. You know?
Yeah.
This ain't any sci-fi film. This is Earth, baby. So, this alien ship...
we get...
Yeah.
I was just going to say, we get formally situated in science fiction, right? By this very brief scene at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then science fiction is completely abandoned for quite a while. I don't know an exact minute count, but we basically enter into what is essentially realist, and I use that term loosely, but a realist story of military incursion in Central America by the U.S. government.
Yes.
But we have been given this kind of like, it's not a surprise, right? We've been given this like this clue that at some point something from like beyond is going to enter into this situation.
Yeah, and we could talk about it because I think they do a really good job actually of slowly reintroducing that element. Because you don't see the actual Predator for a long time in this film. But anyways, yeah, so immediately after this scene, we go to like the first grounded scene. And now I'm going to assume that this was intentional from the filmmakers because, the theme of the movie is get to the chopper! But in the first scene, they are arriving into Choppah. And so that's a really brilliant juxtaposition from later in the film when they're trying to get to the chopper.
And we are in this chopper, and not to skip ahead, but this chopper contains not one, but two future governors of the United States of America, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, this is not something the filmmakers could have foreseen.
Maybe not.
Except for the fact that Ronald Reagan was president.
Ronald Reagan was
But,
president.
I think
you think that Ronald Reagan turned down the role of Major Alan Dutch Schaefer because he had been president for 7 years?
I think he was like, it's, there's only so many hours in the day. I'm really busy with the Iran-Contra affair right now, and I'm very interested in this subject matter specifically, but I just don't have the time. And at my age, I can't survive the amount of steroids I would need to do to meet the requirements of this film. But, this is just to say the film could not have known these people were going to become governors or anything, but there is something...
Nor could they have possibly predicted that would be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there's something prescient in what this film is doing, just like... And I'm not saying this is, like, foresight on the director's part or intent, but just of how completely deranged and horrible our political society is.
Mm-hmm.
That, and I think it makes perfect sense that it is not, Alien, the intellectual side of the Alien v Predator, dynamic that produced future heads of state. But just this film about just the meatiest men, the meatiest, most muscly, most oiled men using their muscles to do imperialism, in an inspiring fashion.
Yeah.
That almost inevitably some of those people would end up getting political power in the US, because we're like, we're right at the beginning, not at the beginning, but we're right in the like formative decade of what gets called neoliberalism in America, right? And like that, I think, a lot of people would say, kind of culminates in this contemporary political environment we have that is completely saturated with media images, and in which talking about what's real versus what's fake is an almost completely pointless task, and Predator, I think in some ways, because it's in many ways depicting real atrocities the U.S. committed, in a completely science fictional, it's like not trying to suppress our incursions in Central America, right?
And we'll
it's
talk about it. I think they directly address some of that perspective in this, but yeah,
but it's like, in producing that as a spectacular image is in some way kind of presaging our era in which politics has become the ultimate spectacle.
And in a way, though, it's not surprising, because when you compare that to something like Aliens has this very overt tone of like anti-corporatism, for instance. Mm-hmm. So go figure, the folks who starred in that movie did not go on to become Republican governors of California. It's going to be this machismo, maybe hints of these themes, but nothing that's central to the plot of the film. Those are the guys that are going to become the future governors, because they didn't, And again, who knows? There's a recall election in California. We could have Governor Paul Reiser. This is a formal call once again. I know that I've tweeted it repeatedly. Paul Reiser, put your hat in the ring. Who knows what might happen?
But yes. Like you say, right, these are people who are embracing the conflation of spectacle and politics.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, a certain type of leftist, or especially like a liberal perspective on this, is to try to insist on their separation. And this is like the problem you get into when you're like, trying to defeat Donald Trump, for example. And you're trying to point out, well, these are the things he's saying aren't true. And it doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? Because he knows it doesn't matter if that or not, because the untruth that he said, he knows spreads through the social media networks and the image reproduction a million times before anyone's corrected him, right? And so like your Arnold Schwarzeneggers and especially your Jesse Venturas, right? Like previously a professional wrestler, right? Mm-hmm. There are people who are not trying to combat this conflation of politics and spectacle, but they like are completely embracing it. And are able to benefit from it. And, it would be great to think, as members of the left, oh, we can just come up with like the truth. And if we just show up and we present the truth at the presidential debates or at the council meetings or whatever, we will prevail. But, there's something informative about this film that's ultimately not what matters. What matters is embracing of the spectacle and also raw force, just raw violence and raw force. But that's, not to get ahead of ourselves. We're back in the chopper.
Speaking of spectacle, the first scene with Governor Schwarzenegger and crew, I have a theory, which is that they had rented out the helicopter, and they got like a set deal. They're like, well, if you get the helicopter, you have to also get the Jeeps, because I don't know if you noticed this, but in that first scene, they land the helicopter. Great soundtrack, by the way. It's very emphasizing the spectacle. It's good, like, getting you geared up sort of soundtrack. They land the helicopter. It keeps cutting to this general who's like watching these helicopters come in, and then also like in the background you see the like indigenous population that's like, so here's this U.S. military that's just here, but it's mostly centered on this general just watching the helicopter land. The helicopter lands what looks to be about 20 feet from where the general's hut is. Governor Schwarzenegger and crew get off the helicopter, get into a Jeep, drive about 15 feet. The Jeep stops, and he gets out of the Jeep to be like, hey, General, long time no see. And that just to me seems so, like, if you're trying to present these guys as like the tough guys, do you really need them to like get out of the helicopter, get in a Jeep to drive 15 feet to like meet the general in command? I just found it very comical how short of a distance that Jeep drove in this scene.
But at the same time, it's like we have to ask ourselves, like, what are the images this film is trying to produce, right? And it is trying to put this machinic American military might on display. And it does not want to waste a single frame not doing that, right? And we'll talk about this later with some of the weaponry involved, right? Yeah. And then interestingly, right, throughout the film, the weaponry kind of becomes cruder, right? There's this very, like, sort of like, very problematic way in which, it becomes more primitive, so to speak. I use that term in terms of what the film is doing.
Right. Yeah.
But at the early parts of the film, we're being shown just like, the complete, like the gravitas of the American military might. But remember, we've also just seen a spaceship.
Yeah.
And so, it's interesting as like patriotically and like over the top as the helicopter Jeep thing is, pales in comparison to the technology that the Predator is going to ultimately bring in, right?
True. It's a good argument for Space Force, which hopefully they reintroduce Predator into theaters this summer to really shore up public support for Space Force, because you never know. That's, I think, the motto of Space Force, because you never know. So yeah, there's this first scene. They get off of the helicopter, and Dutch goes... Governor Schwarzenegger goes into this little compound, and that's where he meets Carl Weathers' character.
Carl Weathers, somehow not one of the future governors in this film. But I feel like if in 1987 I came up to you and I told you, this film contains 2 future governors, who are you putting your money on? You're doing Carl Weathers with a bullet, number 1. And then you're getting into an argument about who number 2 is going to be, right? Yeah. But, and he kind of is the face of the central government, the federal government in this.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and that's where, so that's, he's kind of, as you find out, he's the one who kind of got Governor Schwarzenegger involved in this whole situation. Called him in.
And he's CIA.
He's
like, is it said that he's CIA?
It's not
he definitely
said,
is CIA.
Yeah, and I want to get into this because there's an interesting dynamic of what exactly is going on with the CIA in this film. But it's not exactly clear. I think you can imply that at the very least, this whole mission is, seeped in, like, it came down from the CIA. The whole reason it's happening is because of a CIA informant. Presumably their chopper getting shot down or whatever.
Yeah.
So Governor Schwarzenegger walks into the compound, and that's where we're introduced to Carl Weathers. Governor Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers greet each other. I'm going to assume he says like something along the lines of, "Dylan, you son of a bitch." And they clasp hands, and that's where that meme comes from, of the very muscly arms, clasped hands. It's like that solidarity kind of meme that is out there. That's the origin of that meme.
Yeah, no, I'm looking it up right now. It literally is Dylan, you son of a bitch.
I called it. Okay.
Though I don't think delivered in quite the same way as you did it, but this is
gotta work on my Schwarzenegger.
And as always to remember, this film is peak example of Arnold Schwarzenegger's like unrecognized Austrianness in film. Yeah. Like, which is always kind of a funny thing in a lot of his roles. It's never recognized, but particularly in this film where he's like head of an elite U.S. paramilitary group and just is this gigantic man from Austria. You do get some like there's almost kind of like a wish fulfillment almost that you get from like his casting, which is like, what if there was a version of Operation Paperclip but we just got all the most muscly men from Nazi Germany, the guys who were just really low on the totem pole, very low body count, but very, very low BMI as well.
Yeah, like the guy that Indiana Jones fights at the plane in the first film, like that guy.
That guy. So underused, like the U.S. military had to be looking at that guy like if only we could have gotten our hands on him. Sorry, just quick jump in because you mentioned Jean-Claude Van Damme and like who was originally cast as Dutch. Jean-Claude Van Damme was an original casting in this film, but not as Dutch, as the Predator.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Huh.
But then they felt that he was too short because he was only 5'9", and then everyone else in this film are these like 6 foot plus bodybuilders, and they were like, "This is going to look silly by comparison. We need like a more imposing person." And then the person they get to play the Predator is Kevin Peter Hall, who is 7'2", and that's basically all there is to say about him.
I think it would have been amazing if the Predator was like, under 6 foot, because it emphasizes this whole thing that like his deal is he can just waltz in there and just fuck shit up. He doesn't need to be this super muscular. He can just, with his technology, come in there and fuck shit up. I think
that's right on. That's I think the film getting in its own way there. That's the film being really close to understanding that like its own model of muscly manhood is getting outpaced by, the takeover of technology, right? Like, and, now, like, U.S. military mostly operating via drone, but it couldn't countenance that much truth of having the Predator be 5'9". It was too much of a horror for the film to confront. It had to suppress that by casting a 7'2" guy who was not good at martial arts.
Oh well, you get what you got. So continuing with the sort of plot here, the Carl Weathers character, Dylan, he is like, got a job for you. The job, and as he describes it at that moment, is that there's some foreign cabinet minister guy. He's being held hostage by insurgents, and he's one of our guys, and we gotta get him back, but we can't because he's across the border. And if there's one thing the United States military will not do, it is cross borders when they do not have authority to operate in that jurisdiction. And so instead, they're going to do the much more ethical thing of sending in a paramilitary force to rescue this guy and bring him back to a place where they can be extracted by the Americans.
This cabinet minister, does he always travel on the wrong side of the border?
So that is the mission as Dylan presents it to Governor Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
So that's pretty straightforward. The only like little tension in that moment, he's like, "And I'm coming with you." And that, again, that sets off red flags of like, what's this guy's deal? Why does he have to go? Why does he have to go with the A team here into enemy territory? But he insists. Right. He's like, I'm coming in with you. Let's do this. So
yeah, and it speaking of the meme, right, that this film spawned. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like the irony of that meme is where this film is going to go in a number of ways, both in terms of what literally happens to Carl Weathers' arm from that handshake, but also, the twists and turns of the Dutch-Dylan relationship.
We've set up the mission. I appreciate that it's just like, go in there, get a guy, get these hostages. Mm-hmm. So it's very straightforward in that regard, even though, of course, we don't know all the details. And so they they lift off with their helicopter.
And do we want to introduce the rest of the team now?
Yeah. So as they're in the helicopter, they kind of do this introduction to each of the teammates. And that's where we kind of get to learn who is on Governor Schwarzenegger's team. Who's
and the important
campaign.
Thing about these team members is that they all have an easily and quickly discernible trait from which you can differentiate them from the others.
Which one is it with the jokes?
The jokes, well, so this is interesting. We have Shane Black in this film.
Yeah.
Right? Who is the mostly famous as a screenwriter. He writes Lethal Weapon, which comes out in 1987 as well. So this is a big year for him. Actually, it had already come out at this point. And Lethal Weapon 2, he writes The Last Boy Scout. He would go on to direct Iron Man 3 much later, and he kind of like there's this whole history with Shane Black, and like he kind of starts this phenomenon in Hollywood of like the hotshot screenwriter, and like, oh, we just need to identify these young hotshot screenwriters, throw a bunch of money at their spec scripts, and that's how they're going to make money, because that happens with Lethal Weapon. And so it creates this sort of like the same kind of things that happen in like Finance Capital, where you're like, oh, that thing happened, so a bunch of people are going to try to do the same thing, and It doesn't actually work, because the reason Lethal Weapon became famous was not because there's some universal law of the young gun screenwriter.
Yeah.
But in this movie, he is the weakest member, I think it's fair to say, in terms of physical mass.
Right. Do you know why he was cast in this film?
That I don't know. So
I was doing my background on this film, which involved about 15 minutes of watching behind-the-scenes footage. And he was talking about how they essentially hired him because they knew he was this hotshot screenwriter. And so like, well, if we get him down here to film on location in Mexico, he'll help us revise our script and it'll make the film better. So then we are introduced to Governor Jesse Ventura's character.
The Body Ventura.
We also have a few other characters. So we have Bill Duke's character, which is Sergeant Mac Elliott. He's on there. And who's
and
the other
he's
one?
the very right, like he's the very kind of taciturn character, and we'll probably talk about his interaction with Carl Weathers later, one of like the very memorable lines of the film. But he's the very kind of like silent, badass kind of figure.
He's just there to get the job done. He
then we have
doesn't have
Poncho.
this like bravado of like I'm gonna say these. He's focused on the mission.
Yeah. And then we have Poncho as well, who's the explosives expert. He's again, we're not told any biographical information about him, right? But he's some sort of Hispanic figure. So we've got this very like kind of multicultural group, right? We've got two black characters. We've got Schwarzenegger and Shane Black. And then we've got a Hispanic character and an indigenous character. So there's this idea that this is a very American ideology, right? The idea that America has produced this multicultural fighting force where like the most effective, most skilled people from all the races can come together, from whites, blacks, Hispanics, guys who tell pushy jokes, can come together and be like the elite fighting force, right? This is the American ideal on display.
Yep. And this beautiful multicultural coalition lands in the jungles of Central or South America, and they get off and they go exploring. They're heading towards this camp where these hostages are being held, so they can extract them. And I think at that point, that's when they first find the bodies, right, of the Green Berets that had come in. And this is where you get your first kind of tension on the mission, because a couple things happen. One, they find this American helicopter and all these Green Berets who have been skinned alive. And Governor Schwarzenegger knows the like head Green Beret. He's like, oh shit, those guys were serious. If they got fucked up like this, what's going on here? But he's also like, you didn't tell me that you had sent in Green Berets, Carl Weathers. So there's clearly something going on here that you're not looping me in on. And Carl Weathers is like, I didn't know about any of this.
Nobody told me there was an operation in this area.
So that's like your first indication that trouble is afoot.
There's something going on, and now we're like, we're on the side of the paramilitary, right? We're, as a viewer, we're being interpolated as being on this side. Like, we've been lied to.
Yeah.
We thought we were doing a righteous mission of illegally invading a foreign country, with the intention of killing and extracting, killing people and then extracting a hostage.
He's one of our guys. Yeah.
And this is also where, the film up to this point has had this it's relying on this sort of Cold War logic, where we are able to, there's a very complex global situation going on that we don't need to think about, because we get to think everyone is either on the side of the U.S. or the other side, right? And this is where things start to get a little murky.
Now, I love that you mentioned the Cold War mentality, because a couple of things. First off, one of my favorite lines happens in this interim point before they get to the rebel base, which is where I want to say it's Carl Weathers' character, but so one of them says,
"Do you remember Afghanistan?"
To which Schwarzenegger responds,
"Trying to forget it. Come on."
And I was like, oh, I'm writing that down, because that seems relevant to these trying times. So they and this was one of the, like, they name all these places where they have operated as a paramilitary force. So Afghanistan, Cambodia, Berlin, Libya, like all these places where they've just been, going on nice little paramilitary adventures around the world.
And this is classic, like, you're talking to the CIA or to some other sort of, like, imperialist operation, when they refer to places as events, right? Like, whenever the CIA refers to a place, they're referring to a place and a time.
Yes.
Yeah. Because in the CIA's vision, those places cease to exist in a sense when they are not intelligence operations.
It's hilarious because there's this ongoing thing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where the one character, Hawkeye, and the Scarlett Johansson's character, they refer to Budapest, and they're always like, "You remember Budapest differently than I do," and I'm like, "Oh, what sort of war crimes did they do there?"
You remember when we killed all of those women and children in Budapest, right? That's like what's always being said when someone refers to a random city from the former so-called third world or the former so-called second world is, you remember when we brutally murdered all of those people and how we're eternally traumatized by it.
Now, speaking of brutally murdering, they arrive upon the rebel camp, and a few things happen immediately. The first thing is, one of the hostages is still alive, but is, like, very plot-wise, conveniently, he's killed as they arrive. So, like, they get to witness these rebels killing a hostage. So that makes you as the viewer, like, okay, you don't need to feel complicit in their complete murdering of
these people are killing hostages.
Yeah, they're killing hostages. And again, really
so the thing we've already done, invading the country, is retrospectively justified.
Killed one of the hostages. We move.
The paramilitary Governor Schwarzenegger super PAC arrived just in time to witness the murder, but not in time to prevent the murder. So they witness one of the hostages being murdered. So then they're like, gloves are off! Here we go! And that's when you get... This is like the one big action filmy sequence of the film. This is where they, like, fucking bulldoze this entire rebel compound. It's very confusing as to what the larger context of why this place exists or what's going on here is, because you sort of learn that the hostages are CIA affiliated, that they're not these random foreign officials that were kidnapped, but they're maybe CIA assets. You sort of get these hints that there's some larger geopolitical thing going on here. That's your first...
like shades of like Nicaragua, Sandinistas v. the Contras sort of situation. You know, the simplicity of the narrative that the paramilitary has relied upon, right, is falling apart. But this is, again, this is not motivating towards, like, some actual critique of U.S. empire, right? It's towards the meddling CIA, right? Like, the issue is not that we are, violently invading other countries. It's that the CIA is using the paramilitary as a pawn in its more complex games, right? Whereas like the more just thing would be this like direct confrontation or something.
And so this is where they get they stocked up their action film phrases for this specific scene to just get rid of all of them. So a few of these.
This is what Shane Black was doing. They had him tied up, with a bag over his head, doing all the CIA bullshit to him. That of the various CIA agents who I'm sure were advisors on this film, their primary function was to torture Shane Black to get him to produce the following lines.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger, Governor Schwarzenegger, stabs a dude and then says, "Stick around." That was one of them. That probably took hours of brainstorming to come up with. He at one point kicks open a door and goes,
Knock, knock.
and murders everyone. Like some sort of, paramilitary Santa. And then there's one line that is like comes out of this film that I think is one of the like classic lines from the film, which is this might have actually been the Shane Black character. He says to the one guy,
"You're bleeding, man." To
Jesse the Body Ventura, to which Jesse Ventura responds,
"I ain't got time to bleed."
And then that's always the scene, but then his follow-up is actually the culmination of the quote, which is, "Oh, okay."
You got time to duck?
And then they have to duck because they're under fire there. So
yeah,
they get all of their action movie one-liners out in this scene where they murder this camp.
These are action figures at this point. Like, this is like a child has assembled their G.I. Joes, and the nondescript, nameless, thoughtless, lifeless, these are not meant to be people. These are just receivers of the bullets and the violence of the U.S., which is completely righteous and is also funny. It's something that should make us laugh, and, that's... and it's almost like it's more of it's like a consolation that like, oh, like I bet the paramilitary invasions are just like having all these one-liners as they murder people. And I don't know if it's more horrifying if they do that or if they don't.
Well, I think that thematically why this beyond the horror of what it says about all of these things more broadly, is it's kind of setting up this idea that this American paramilitary force is the apex predator of this environment. It can walk in here and just fucking murder everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
and it has time to like tell jokes.
Yeah.
Even the telling someone to duck, right? It's like, we have the time to tell you to duck in like a funny way, because there's no and when you do get hit, like Jesse Ventura, it's like it's not of a concern. No. You're impervious. You're a video game character. Some of your health has been chopped off. But, it's a video game logic of how people die at this point. Whereas as enemy combatants, you hit them in the head, they're dead. But it's like, if I get hit in the head, I just lose like 25% of my life force or whatever, which I can replenish later.
It's nothing to these people. Getting shot at doesn't bother them. Or as Jesse the Body Ventura would say,
"I wouldn't wish that on a broke big dog."
So one of the themes that really stood out to me that I thought was really interesting comes about in the follow-up to this giant battle. They've destroyed this entire village, and the paramilitary folks, led by Governor Schwarzenegger, realize some shit's going on here because those guys were speaking Russian. It seems that the hostage was a CIA asset, so they realize like shit is going on. And so Governor Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers get into a heated argument. And Carl Weathers has this great line that I think is just well said. He says, "I woke up. Why don't you?"
You're an asset. An expendable asset. And I used you to get the job done. Got it?
To which Schwarzenegger replies,
"My men are not expendable.
And I don't do this kind of work." Which again, his men are expendable. They're all gonna die. And he does do this kind of work because he just murdered a village. So I love
he's
that
also
back
like,
and forth.
We have previously been told he's been trying to forget Afghanistan, and apparently by the time of this exchange, he has succeeded in doing so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. I just love that back and forth because it's like Carl Weathers recognizes that we are all cogs in this vicious machine, and I've recognized that, and I'm using you to get this job done. And Schwarzenegger or Dutch is not ready to accept that reality, but like that is the reality of this situation. You're being used as a pawn in this game to murder people. So that line stood out.
End of capital, right? Like, and like this is maybe where the film, if we want to, like, not that we need to be too precious about locating a radical potential in Predator, right? But if there's a radical potential in Predator, it's in its acknowledgement that everyone is expendable to this system, right?
Right. So they get done murdering a village. They have this argument back and forth. There is one rebel that survives this. Her name is Anna. So they move on. They can't get picked up right there from the helicopter because it's too hot.
The place is too hot for a pickup.
You know, the helicopter it's too hot.
This film is very invested in the particularities of when and where helicopters can land.
And again, it's really building up. They started this movie on Choppah, but now it's slowly transitioning to their need to get to Choppah. So they're traveling back, and this is, I think, the a very well done way in which they are introducing the Predator back into the film. So they show, as they're leaving this scene, like the Predator's view, which is this very crappy 1980s version of like heat seeking.
It's kind of like Terminator vision a little bit, right? It's like this computerized, like heads-up display, and it's also very video gamey, right?
Right.
Like we were talking about the video game logic of this film earlier, right? But you know, like this, the Predator does not see in an organic way. Right. The Predator is very explicitly this combination of almost being too organic, like in the sense of like kind of grossly fleshy, and machinic, like explicitly not organic, and like its vision, like at this point we're getting the and very like Boba Fett-ish, I'll also say, but like generically, right, at this point it's interesting because like we were promised science fiction by that first shot of the spaceship, and then we got like 80s action movie, and then the Predator shows up and we're expecting science fiction, but what we actually get is a horror film. This is like horror film logic, right? Because it's like, it's very much kind of like John Carpenter's Halloween or something. We're not really being shown a full image of the Predator. That is withheld from us. We're getting his vision, right, which is something that always happens in slasher films, right? You see the killer seeing people before you actually see the killer in any kind of full frame shot. And then of course we get the like picking off one by one, which is like, you know, classic horror movie structure.
And I think that moment where that clawed hand is revealed is sort of the hunter becomes the hunted moment. You've now revealed that this paramilitary force is the apex predator as they perceive it in this environment, but they're not, because they're about to done get murdered. So that's kind of the switch, the thematic switch in the film. So we go forward. They've got the insurgent prisoner. They're going through the forest, the jungle, and this is where like things really pick up. So first off, insurgent prisoner, she nopes off at one point, right? Because they're getting all distracted because Billy Soul, I think, is like, yo, there's an invisible alien in the trees, and I can sense him because
he has the magical sensory powers as we've
have these magical sensory powers.
That damn nose of his. It's weird.
And he's all freaked out, and that's supposed to tell you, like, oh shoot, if Billy Soul is freaked out, then everyone should be freaked out, you know? But while they're all distracted with that, she nopes off and is chased. Is it Billy Soul's character that chases her? Is he the one who? Oh no, it might have been Poncho actually. Who's the first one? The first one that Whoever chases her gets murdered.
I think Billy is one of the last to die, so it's Poncho.
Okay, so Poncho...
And this is interesting because I remember watching this film, and like I'm thinking, you go into that horror movie calculus where you're like, there's a certain amount of people, a certain number of them is going to die, and there's a certain order.
Right.
And you start doing that, you're really, from this point on in the film, I think you're really, as a viewer, doing this math of, like, who's going to be next.
Right, and so I want to...
And I was sure Shane Black was going to be first to die.
Really?
Because he seems to be set up as the most contemptible character. But it's Poncho, and I guess it makes sense that it's Poncho because we haven't talked about Poncho at all up to this point. So he doesn't really do anything in this film besides die. I
thought that the first character to be killed off was going to be Billy Soul. And the reason why is because if you kill this guy who, like, sort of can see the environment, like, suddenly you're naked in the jungle, Like, you don't have that person with the magical indigenous powers to... like, perceive this. So I thought he was going to be the first to be killed off, but he's not. He's one of the last.
Yeah. If I can say something just in general as a preface to this part of the film, I think to the extent that this film is multicultural, it's the degree to which it's most successful in that is I do think it authentically is confusing and subversive in the order in which it kills people.
True.
Because it does not follow a clear hierarchy of death, which includes importance as a character. It includes any kind of racial hierarchy, right? Like a lot of horror films kill black characters first. That's like a well-known trope, right?
Right.
Like this film is... I find it very hard as like a first-time viewer to predict the order in which people are going to die. Other than, maybe like the last survivors are easy to predict.
Right.
But up to then, it does... But that kind of is like the ultimate horror of its politics, right? It's like liberal politics. Everyone is equally free to die and be murdered for no reason.
Right. I do want to call out here, I did some research, which was looking at the Wikipedia page, and it is actually Shane Black's character who dies first.
Okay.
Which makes sense to me because he had the radio with him. He chases after her, and again, he's like the nice guy, so he's like, no, hey, it's okay, but then he's fucking murdered by the Predator, and the Predator doesn't kill the Anna character, kind of just lets her go. And so it becomes this whole thing where she's in shock. They come across the like blood tracks of whatever the fuck happened to Hawkins. And they're trying to find out like where is his body, what the fuck happened. And as that is happening, that is when Jesse the Body Ventura dies. Which is a really pivotal moment for Bill Duke's character, Sergeant Mac
the body
Elliott.
is destroyed by the Predator.
It's done.
And, the sexual Tyrannosaurus goes down. And then this is where we find out that Bill Duke apparently really cared about the Jesse Ventura. Like, they were apparently best friends. Bill Duke is very upset. He grabs the minigun. He fires it until it's out of rounds. Just at the space where the Predator had been. And we should say the Predator is in full cloaking technology. And Bill Duke, from this point on in the film, becomes obsessed with his quest to avenge Jesse Ventura. Which, again, is so strange because, like, in that helicopter scene where Jesse Ventura is, trying to get people to do his chewing tobacco and stuff, clear opportunity to show camaraderie between these two characters, like they're doing it together or something, like they're chumming up and kind of like giving everyone else a hard time. Film doesn't do that.
No.
But it's like, oh, obviously these people, had this really, tight history and it becomes very homoerotic.
Sure.
Like, Bill Duke seems to be, like, in love with him. Like, the way he kind of puts his body to rest. It's some of the film's sort of tensions start to come loose, I think.
Yes.
With the death of Jesse.
He was a good soldier.
He was, my friend.
So, I'm sure we'll come back to Bill Duke's character here, but at this point, like, the game is on. They realize what's happening. So they decide, well, because, again, Bill Duke's character very angrily shoots the minigun into the forest. The predator gets away, but it does bleed. And so Governor Schwarzenegger realizes, well, if it bleeds, we can kill it. So they realize it can be killed.
One of the great lines of
their
the film.
plan is, let's hole up, put a bunch of booby traps all around us, and let it come to us. So the crux of this whole thing, they set up all these booby traps, and the main outcome from this is that there is a boar that runs into the camp at night that Billy Duke's character kills. You're set up to think that's the alien, but it's not. It's just a big pig. But then you realize that the predator walked in, took Jesse the Body Ventura's body out of the camp in the middle of the night and just like left. And they're like, oh my god, this thing can do whatever it wants. We are so fucked. And so this is the first instance where Governor Schwarzenegger tells Anna that she needs to get to the Choppah. That's the first utterance of that phrase. He says it a number of times afterwards. That's the first instance was like, the only way we're gonna fucking survive this is like get to the fucking chopper. We just need to fucking get out of here.
The characters are acknowledging they're in a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're not in a they thought they were in like fucking the Delta Force or something, right? Like some kind of like CIA propaganda film, which isn't to say this isn't a CIA propaganda film.
Right.
But, that now the mission is escape. It's not victory.
So shit hits the fan. People are now starting to die real quick. At this point, I think we have the character, Bill Duke's character, Mac, just fucking nopes off into the woods like, I'm going to go kill this predator. And it's like, oh, I guess he's going to die now.
When we've established earlier in the film, right, that Bill Duke's character is kind of like exceptional at his abilities as a sort of like silent mover through the jungle and stuff, right? Because there's the famous scene where Bill Duke and Carl Weathers are sort of like next to each other as they're walking through the jungle, right? And Carl Weathers is like making too much noise or something, right? And like Bill Duke like turns back to him, and I think the line is something along the line, and he's delivering in this like husky whisper, right? And he's like,
I don't care who you are back in the world. You give up position one more time, I'll bleed you real quiet. Leave you here. Got that?
Right. Like, Bill Duke is like, he moves in silence and he kills you in silence.
Which is why it's interesting that he ends up essentially hunting the predator with Carl Weathers' character at this point, because Schwarzenegger was going to run off and be like, I'm going to fucking do that. And Carl was like, no, it's me. I'm going to redeem myself as the CIA asset. I'm going to redeem myself. I'm going to go off and hunt this predator with, Bill Duke's Sergeant Mac, who has already run off into the jungle to murder the predator in a fit of rage because he's in love with Jesse the Body Ventura's character. So Governor Schwarzenegger heads off with Anna, the insurgent, and who can forget Billy Soul, who's still alive. They all just head towards the Choppah, and the Carl Weathers goes off to follow Bill Duke's character to try and kill the predator, hold off the predator at the very least. Mm-hmm. At this point now, Bill Duke's character is dead, And then we have this. Now we have essentially Carl Weathers' character who has gone to redeem himself. And you mentioned like the muscles, like the clamping hands at the beginning with him and Schwarzenegger. It's funny because the Predator finds him and just immediately fucking blows his arm off. So
yeah, the arm that offered solidarity before has literally just been in one of the like grossest scenes of the film. One of them, it just like is ripped right off.
Yeah. So that happens. He lands some shots on the Predator, but he's dead. He's gone. Carl Weathers, no more.
Well, his arms, it like keeps shooting the gun after it's been dismembered.
Right, when he picks up then the gun and like tries to shoot, so but it doesn't work out well for him. He's gone. And at this point, Billy Saul is like, no, I'm gonna fight the Predator. And so
he stays behind again to buy time, right? People keep giving themselves up to buy time in this film,
right? And
they aren't buying much time.
So you finally get your first extended shot that shows the Predator at 1 hour and 19 minutes into the film.
Several less minutes than we're into this podcast, though.
Yeah, and so then we get to the final battle. Schwarzenegger yells like,
I'm here! Kill me! Come on! Kill me! I'm here!
And that's how the Predator's like, oh, there's a dude off in the jungle. I'm going to go investigate. So he goes, and the Predator's solution, which is I found sort of interesting in that it's kind of the same as the paramilitary solution was at the start of the film. He just blows everything up. He just like starts shooting his lasers at everything, every single tree. He's like, I don't know where they are. I'm just going to laser everything. The difference being that it doesn't work for him like it did for the paramilitary folks. And now we have the final showdown because Dutch shoots his bow, but not the iron arrow tips, but like his explosive thing. And it like goes and there's some explosions, and you have this battle between him and the Predator. There is some hilarious hitting sound effects when him and the Predator eventually get to like hand-to-hand combat. You have like poof, pow, poosh. It's like honestly, go watch the film. These sound effects are hilarious. But the Predator is hitting him. He's hitting the Predator's like poof, 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 pow. And it gets to the point where they're fighting and the Predator has the upper hand. But the Predator at that moment has a very Arnold Schwarzenegger idea in his mind where he's like, no, I'm going to have hand-to-hand combat with this guy. I'm taking off my mask. I'm taking off my armor. You get to see my ugly face. That's like the money shot. You like first see the Predator like in the last 20 minutes of the film, you finally see his face. But
but this is like the film has written itself into a corner of sorts, right? Where like there is no credible way for Dutch to defeat the Predator other than the Predator's own ostensible commitment to some kind of like ethics of combat, right? Which the U.S. Empire does not respect at all, right?
The Predator
but maybe likes to think it would.
Conception of masculinity that is also what Dutch adheres to. So it's a universal principle, apparently. So he's like, I'm not going to shoot with my laser. We're going to fight mano a mano, which doesn't work out well because Dutch murders the Predator, and the Predator. Like they do this thing that they only use at the very end, which is the Predator uses the sounds he had heard and mimics them, and it's like ha ha ha, which is using Billy Soul's laughing about the dumb pussy jokes. He's like ha ha ha, and that's where Governor Schwarzenegger realized like, oh, he's gonna self-destruct and I'm gonna run away. So he runs away. The Predator self-destructs, and it's that classic tale of American paramilitary forces overcoming extraterrestrial predators. We did it. We won this battle, boils and goyles.
Because all we're asking as the U.S. Empire is for people to play by the rules.
I think Space Force needs a lot more funding, is what I got from this film.
Because by the time they get down to the ground, we're like several steps behind.
Right.
So, but yeah, where at the end of the day do we land on this film is the question. We've kind of said throughout, this is a incredibly ideological film, right? This is a piece of, it's hard not to see it as propagandistic. It's hard not to see it as racist, homophobic, all sorts of problems. If we're going to locate something more interesting than that in it, right? I think it's in the fact that the film shows, the idea of having the most firepower, right? Being the strongest one, so to speak, and that assuring one's dominance, right, is a very precarious position to take.
Right.
Maybe this is what the film is trying to point to, right? But is that a authentically recoverable political position within this film, within all the other stuff it's doing? I'm not so sure, right? But the sort of the idea of, I like the reading of the film in which the Predator is actually on the side of the global South, right? That's where that's what I want, and in that sense, the film is a tragedy. I think to the extent that, if we want to find anything politically useful in this film, it's that it's like the Predator was right. In a sense, and that this film is anti-Predator propaganda, right? It's telling you that anyone that would fight against the U.S. Empire, against the CIA, is doing it out of some sort of callous trophy collecting bloodlust,
right?
But because the film can't imagine the reason that anyone would do it otherwise.
Yeah. So I'm very. I think I have very similar takeaways in that when you look at the broad picture of the film, would anyone have died in this film had it not involved Americans taking helicopters into a sovereign nation? Because the only people that died, other than the Americans killing people, the only people that died in this film from the Predator were the Green Berets and this paramilitary force that just waltzed into some sovereign nation and murdered a bunch of people. So you're left asking the question, would the Predators have killed people randomly? Were they not this apex predator of the paramilitary force?
So the question the film leaves us asking, I think, again, maybe in spite of itself, is that the U.S.'s prerogative, it so declares, to intercede into any given sovereign nation in defense of, quote unquote, its interests, right?
Yeah.
Sort of is premised on the fact that it does not expect to meet any force in those sovereign nations that can meet its raw strength, its raw power, its raw muscly mass, right? And what this film leaves us asking is, but what if it did?
Yeah.
And it turns out not such a good look.
There it is. Predator, 1987. Good chat.
Awesome.
I'm thinking that we might need a world in which we discuss aliens in the future. Sort of start to spin together the alien person. I don't want to make this a whole AVP themed podcast, but it seems like, if you have the Predator, you have to have the analogous Aliens conversation.
Absolutely. And I've never seen Aliens. I've seen Alien, and I've seen Alien 3. I've never seen Aliens. So, yeah. Right. So at the end of the day, do we recommend Predator?
Yeah, it's a fun film. I mean, it's, if you keep in the back of your mind the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger's paramilitary crew are actually the bad guys, it's a compelling film in which the bad guys do win in the end, but it gives you a good run for your money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and they deserve to die, and most of them do.
Yeah.
So, less could be said of other films. All right. Thanks, Ethan. I think this, we did a pretty good job. We'll think of a name before posting this.
Yeah, you just have to dub in the name.
We'll dub in just a crude voiceover announcing what the name is. But
Great.